Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to read a post called "My Guy Friend Stood Up For Me Against One of Their Creepy Friends" on a throwaway account because some people know I read it. I'm just really happy and I got a rant about it. I guess I just didn't expect them to be as cool about it as they were, and it took me by surprise. Every now and then we get together to play ultimate frisbee at midnight. It's kind of a tradition. Well, this time there was a guy there that everyone knew, but he wasn't invited. He just showed up. He's known for being a bit of an ass, but we decided to play with him anyways. I don't really know him personally, he's been at a few events I've gone to, but really that's it. However, most of my guy friends have known him for years. Anyways, I was the only girl at the game, as is usually the case whenever I hang out with them. Usually my guy friends don't even really notice. I never felt weird being the only girl around them. This guy, however, took every opportunity he could to point it out. He guarded me the whole game. He really didn't have to, I suck at frisbee, and he was just messing with me the whole time. He teased me and called me names, which is kind of normal for the friend group, so I laughed it off, but I wasn't close to him, and he took it to a whole new level. He would not stop commenting on anything I did or said. A little bit into the game, he fell on me and grabbed my breast. I was too shocked to say anything at first and gave him the benefit of the doubt. Then it happened 2 more times. He would say things like, "Oh boy, did I grab you there? Whoops, my bad. Oh, oops, there I go again." I shoved him off me and sat out for a bit. I was fuming. I was kind of scared to bring it up to my friends because, like I said, they've never really pointed out that I was the only girl in the group. I really didn't want to bring attention to that and make it awkward. Eventually, when a few other guys sat down to take a break, I brought it up. They were shocked. They said he's done creepy things in the past, but that was the final straw. Everyone went up to him and told him to go home. He tried to say things like, "I was just joking, can't you take a joke?" They all told him that jokes like that aren't funny and that he needed to leave. I felt bad about it at first because they've known him longer than they've known me, but they all told me they didn't want him around if he was going to act like that. They assured me that he wasn't going to be invited to any more of their events or anything. I guess I really didn't expect them to stand up for me, or I thought I would make things awkward by bringing it up, but they surprised me in the best way. I'm glad they're my friends. What an awesome story. Let's take a short break and then we'll get into the analysis. Unlike a lot of the Reddit posts that I read, this one isn't really asking for advice, it's just telling a story, so this video might be a little bit shorter than the other ones, but I still have plenty to say about it. The main thing that I want to talk about is what a powerful display of positive masculinity it was at the end there when all of her friends stood up for her. I'll save that discussion for the end though. First we'll talk about some of the minor points. Now, first off, this guy who keeps grabbing her breasts is a creep. Now, ordinarily, I really don't like that word because so often I see it used to shame men who aren't really creepy, they're just socially awkward. However, when reading a story like this one, you realize that there are guys out there who genuinely are creeps and that we do need a word to designate them as such. Now, I don't really have much of a clue what's going on for this guy psychologically. His behavior is so far removed from anything that I would consider to be acceptable or that I can even begin to understand, from my own experience or the experience of my friends. But all that aside, it's safe to say that his behavior was absolutely just terrible and unacceptable on all accounts. To begin with, who turns up to anything uninvited? Like, what kind of sense of entitlement do you have that you can just turn up to social situations when people haven't asked you to be there? If you do turn up uninvited to something, at least have the sense of decency to feel a bit ashamed about it and try and draw as little attention to yourself as possible. That way you're not intruding on other people's space. That's not what this guy does though. He turns up and he starts acting like a moron, all loud and obnoxious. He's following this girl around and making all these comments about her. He's teasing her and calling her names. Now, there's really only 2 situations where you should ever be teasing a girl. The first is when you're flirting with a girl. You're teasing her, calling her names, and she's into it, and you can be comfortable that you're okay, what you're doing is socially calibrated and you can continue. Pay close attention to the signals that she's giving though, because if she's laughing and giggling, that's absolutely fine, but if she starts to close off her body language, like she's not into it, don't keep teasing her because that's when you do enter the realms of a creepy guy. The other time you can tease a girl is if you're good friends, because then it's safe and it's familiar. However, that's not what's going on here. He doesn't even know this girl, which makes his teasing of her completely inappropriate and not at all socially calibrated. Of course, teasing this girl isn't even the worst thing that this guy does. I mean, yes, that's stupid and not at all socially calibrated, and he's a bit of a creep just for acting that way to begin with, but he takes it to a whole new level when he keeps grabbing her breasts. 3 times he does this. 3 times. I really can't relate to that. Not me or any of my friends would ever think that that's appropriate to do. So with regards to what he's thinking or what his motivations are, that's going to have to remain a little bit of a mystery. We can, however, have a look at how she responds to the situation. At first, she just observes his behavior and tries to sort of laugh it off. She sees him acting obnoxiously, but she decides to give him the benefit of the doubt. I think that this is sensible from her. If it's all just harmless fun, then you don't want to make a big deal out of it and potentially spoil everybody's night. At first, just assume it's a misunderstanding, but then watch and see how things develop. That's how to handle the general sort of teasing and commenting on the fact that she's a girl. But then he steps it up to a whole new level when he starts grabbing her breasts. And that's when she knows it's not her imagination. This guy is a creep who's basically committing sexual assault. Again, she handles this very sensibly. She removes herself from the game so that she can process her anger. She stops and she reflects, and she comes to the correct conclusion that the right thing to do is to tell her male friends. Now, of course, she could have confronted him directly, but that would have put her in a really horrible situation, because her other male friends don't know what's transpired, and all they would have seen is two people arguing. She did the best thing that she can do, which is to stop, take a breath, let the anger pass, and then come up with a plan for how she's going to share this information with the others. Naturally, she's scared. If she brings this up, is it going to reflect badly upon her as someone who unnecessarily stirs up trouble? After all, they've known this guy for longer. Maybe they won't even believe her. I think that most people can relate to what she's going through in this situation. If you've ever been victimized in a group setting and you want to stand up for yourself, you will have doubts over whether or not you'll be believed or if you'll be seen as just a troublemaker. However, she overcomes her doubts and she shows courage. She shares with her friends what happens, and luckily for her, they're awesome guys and they do the right thing and stand up for her. When they go to confront the guy, he doesn't deny it. He tries to pass it off as some kind of a joke, which in a sense is actually lucky for her, because if he had denied it, then there would have been some room for doubt. It just becomes a sort of he said, she said situation. This is one of the reasons why it's so great that she decided to deal with the situation right then and there. He was essentially caught in the act, and it was a lot harder for him to deny. Had she waited a couple of weeks before saying anything, this guy would have just denied it, and really, how would anybody know the truth? But she did the brave thing, and she brought it up right then and there, on the night that it occurred. I say brave because this woman's being vulnerable. She's putting herself on the line and giving this guy the chance to fight back against her accusations. That takes a lot of courage. She could easily have just waited a couple of nights until there was a setting where she was guaranteed to be believed, or at least guaranteed that he wasn't going to be there to call her a liar or dispute her accusations. But she decided to confront the situation right then and there, which must have been difficult for her because she had to sit through the confrontation and listen to this guy criticize her for not being able to take a joke. I know that instances of sexual misconduct are difficult to deal with, and if you've been through something that's genuinely so traumatizing that you need some time to process it, that you can't deal with it right then and there, well, that's understandable. However, when you are able to say something right then and there and confront your perpetrator directly, it lends a lot of credibility to what you're saying, and you're a lot more likely to be believed. If the person who wrote this post was just a manipulative woman who liked to make up stories about being groped so that she could get attention, she wouldn't have handled it the way that she did. She wouldn't have confronted this guy or dealt with the situation right then and there on the night. Instead, she will have waited until a time and context where she was guaranteed to be believed, and there was no chance of this guy being present in order to be able to defend himself. So, having said all that, I think it's reasonably clear that she's telling the truth, and I think that she handled the situation absolutely perfectly. Good for her. Now I want to talk about how her friends handled this situation, which I think is equally fantastic. I'll take a short break and then we'll get into it. Okay, so her friends are awesome. They heard her story, realized that this guy was acting like a creep, and then told him to get lost, which is exactly what they should have done. Evidently, they had no difficulty believing this girl because this guy had a history of pulling this kind of behavior, so it sort of fit his profile. This guy tries to pass it off as a joke, but that's not funny. It's obviously not funny. He's guilty and he's caught in the act doing something despicable, and he's trying to paint it off as humor in order to create a sort of, hey, us guys are just sort of joking around, she's a woman, she can't take the joke kind of vibe. But they don't buy into it, and they shouldn't. How her friends handled this situation is a wonderful demonstration of what masculinity is. It's strength, and conviction and standing up for what's right and standing up for the vulnerable. I think it's extremely noteworthy that they didn't abdicate their own responsibility by saying something dismissive like, "Well, go talk to him," or "You two go sort it out." That would have absolutely been the wrong thing to do, because this didn't happen as an isolated incident between two people. This happened in a group, and they have a group collective responsibility to make sure that the space remains safe for all the people who they invited there. She would not have been safe to go up and confront this guy because he's already demonstrated he's comfortable crossing boundaries. She's right to keep her distance from him. I really like this story because even though it was an extremely uncomfortable situation, it was handled so well. I don't think she was acting like a damsel in distress, and I don't think that her male friends were unnecessarily white knighting. In fact, there doesn't even really need to be a gender dynamic to this. This is just good, rational people standing up against somebody who's crossed boundaries. Now, as great as it is to hear this story, it also doesn't surprise me because the behavior taken by her friends is exactly what I would expect men to do. All of the men that I know, that I interact with, would have done the exact same thing. It's what decent men, and just decent people in general, would do. And I really wish that the wider culture would pay more attention to this aspect of masculinity, this good part, because that's what's in the majority. If you had to divide men into the creepy breast-grabbing category and the stand up for what's right category, you'd find that 99% of men would fall on this side. The amount of men out there who are genuine creeps is extremely small, but they receive a disproportionately large amount of the attention. Masculinity isn't toxic. Masculinity is wonderful. It's beautiful. It's what allowed her group of friends to stand up for her. That's what masculinity is, and that's what I like so much about this story. Now, as always, I'm curious to know what you guys think, so please leave a comment below letting us know what you thought about this situation. Make sure to hit that like button, and if you haven't already done so, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you're enjoying these videos and you appreciate me giving my perspective on these situations, then perhaps you want to help me out. And the best way to do that is through my Patreon page. There's a link in the description box below. Click it, check it out. I post on there every single day, and it's a great way to interact with me. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you again next time.